Hello again. We're still in conversation with Gavin Prince as well as Child Welfare Supervisor Nina de Caris, talking about same-sex couples adopting children. Nina, we went to the break. Before we went to the break, actually, we were discussing the difference between a private and a public social worker. Are the rules different for each one, or is it the same rules? It's just what Gavin was speaking to. The one speeds up the process.
I think, you know, a worker in private practice and workers working for non-profitable organizations, the difference is the one is just doing just adoptions for themselves in a private capacity, but they all have to be registered through the Department of Social Development. They have to be accredited to do adoptions. So we all have to have proof that we are adoption social workers and that we are accredited at the department. There is a list of names of people that have been accredited, and there's a whole process that you go through. The procedures that we follow are all based on the Children's Act, and we all follow the same procedures, same criteria.
Okay. We were discussing about open and closed adoptions and the meaning of that. Talk us through what that actually is all about.
So basically, like, open adoption is where, and Nina was mentioning it in the break, is where you involve like the family, the biological mother and family of the child that you're adopting, whereas ours was a closed adoption. So that is where the mother does not want to know who adopted the child, or you know, does not want to be involved in the child's life. We don't judge like our child's mother, because obviously circumstances drove her to, but the fact that she actually went to a social worker, which she did in our case, and she says, I'm 21 years old, I can't look after the baby, please find me like a suitable family, and then the social worker messaged us on a Friday. The next Friday we had a baby in our house. Sure. So I always said, like, the title of our book in terms of the adoption would be How to Become a Dad in 7 Days, because that's literally like what happened to us.
We'll be waiting keenly for that book. Nina, so we know what the process is like for people who are looking to adopt children. Just how much work is done with children themselves? Sometimes you find that a child is adopted and then they're brought back because they have behavioral problems, or because the family just didn't get along with the child. Just how much are we preparing the children for what they're also going to be going into?
Usually the babies, I just want to touch on what Gareth said. The process is much longer now, in the sense that a baby does not get placed with adoptive parents straight after birth. We have to prove that the child has been is adoptable. So there's a whole court process that goes behind it, in that we have to prove that we try to find the biological parents, or if the biological parents are around, they both have to sign consent to the adoption of the child. Coming back to your question, I think it's important that the child is fully assessed. You know, we have to have the child medically assessed at a hospital, and we must know whether this child is HIV positive or negative, you know, what is the physical status of the child, and then the child gets placed in temporary safe care. Usually, most of the cases we deal with are babies that have either been abandoned, or the mothers have signed consent to the adoption. So we must be very sure of that, and once they are declared adoptable, then they get placed with prospective adoptive parents that have gone through a screening process. I think it's very important. The screening process is quite, as he said, it's very in-depth. You know, we do individual interviews, we look at the marriage, we do financial assessments, we also look at the medical aspects, and we follow up on references, we do a home visit, we do all the police screening. So it's
family history as well.
Yes, family history. So we do an in-depth investigation of their motivation to adopt, and would this family be able to take care of a child. Our aim is really to find a home for a child.
Right.
And in the meantime, when it's older children, you know, they form part of that process. You know, child participation is very important when it's an older child. When it's a younger child, we do try and get the parents involved as soon as they have been matched with the specific baby.
Okay. Gavin, you mentioned earlier how people swoon when they see you with the baby and how excited they are, and you're at a mall. So we know when you go to a mall and maybe you need to change the baba's nappy.
Oh.
When you go in, there's the women's bathroom, and where you can change a child. What are some of the challenges that you are faced with on a daily basis? Like reality of, geez, where do I go in order to be able to take care of my baby?
That was probably like the biggest challenge to become like new parents, because I remember being at a mall in Cape Town and just driving up to the mall, because usually at the entrances of malls you've got this parking for like parents, but no, in South Africa we've got mommy and children parking and not daddy and children parking. And I know it's very psychological, but I mean the reality is when you get to a public toilet and you see the picture of a woman and a baby, what are you going to do? You're going to walk in and you're going to think, hey, are there other women in there and you're not supposed to be there? It is a huge challenge for me. There's one shopping center, one center in Joburg that I have found where they have both a father, picture of a father and a mother and a child in the middle, and so this is the parent parking.
Lovely.
Because I think, literally, like I've got like a newborn baby in my hands. Where am I going to change her? Like at a shopping center. So that was very, very, very challenging for me. And I think there's room for improvement.
Yeah, we can advocate for that change, right?
Yes.
Like you mentioned a little bit earlier on, that there are fathers who are hands-on with their children, and they also deserve to not feel awkward in certain spaces.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming through and chatting to us on this Sunday morning. And that was Child Welfare Supervisor Nina de and Gavin Prince, a radio presenter and publicist.